Good morning. Welcome to another episode of the Healing Hour. I am your host, Sarah Fargo O'Brien. If you are here, let me know that you're here. I'm working on my own little intro. If I could figure out how to get my video off and keep that up, and I will add one of my favorite songs or a song from one of my favorite bands as my intro every week. I got inspired by reading my chapter from the anthology I did with Nick. If you haven't had an opportunity to check out Nick's stuff, she is starting a new publishing company called Guiding Brilliant Writers, and boy, does she do just that. I've had the privilege of working with Nick on 2 anthology projects, and this week, she was so kind as to have me as a guest on her podcast, The Person Behind the Pen, and I got to read my chapter from the latest book that I did with her, and that chapter for me was all about how music is healing. And music has saved my life so many times. So I thought, why not? Let's start adding it here to the start of my show as my own little intro. All right, let me get on the screen for you guys. Welcome. Good morning. Let me know that you are here. Say hello. Let me know what you have going on this week. If you're excited to learn about healthy conflict, if you watched my last episode on unhealthy conflict, and today we're going to dive into content on healthy conflict. Oh, my buddy's here. Hello, Andrew. Thank you. Oh, how nice. Your smile shines so bright and brings joy to all of us. What a lovely message. So I'm already all over the place trying to do something new this morning, guys, with my music. But I forgot to mention that Andrew Stout and his podcast, the Let's Be Diverse podcast, sponsors the Healing Hour podcast. We get to work in conjunction on our love for trauma-informed leadership and our love for people and humans feeling valued. So that is where we align and get to work together. He supports me in every one of my shows and trying to link me with some other professionals for some good collaboration. So I appreciate my work with Andrew, and thank you to the Let's Be Diverse podcast for sponsoring the Healing Hour. Ibrahim, hopefully I got that correct after our, phonetics lesson in the last show. Top of the morning back to you, right? That's a very Irish saying. I do have Irish in my background, but under McDonald's, O'Brien is my marinade, but very, very, very Irish on that side. So I love that, Ibrahim. Top of the morning to you as well. Thank you for chiming in. Thank you for watching my show again. I'm glad that you're back to learn about healthy conflict. Okay, I got my coffee, my badass coffee. Okay, so let me just plug them. This is the best coffee. I've been drinking coffee for years and years. If you're talking about home brewing things, badass coffee is where it's at. So go get you some coffee, tea, water, milk, whatever is your drink of preference at 11:05 a.m. And I will do my check-in for today, even though I've given you guys some announcements. Do my 3 deep breaths, and then we'll dive into some content. Oh, another lovely message from my friend. Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate that. That means a lot. I'm glad that my good humanness, even though I'm imperfect, shines through. That warms my heart. Where am I at this morning? This is the only scheduled thing I have for today. So getting up and getting ready for this was a little difficult just because I wanted to do what I wanted to do, which was not like put on my face and get ready for this show. But I did have time to walk my dog this morning and get outside in the sunshine and the fresh air. It is really warm here today. It is 11 o'clock and it is already 82 degrees outside of Richmond, Virginia. It's a little too hot, a little too fast. This is kind of abnormal for us. We've had 80-degree weather for like the last week or two, and in April and early May, that is unusual, but it has been nice to get outside. My dogs like to be out more when it's warm, and that helps me be outside more. So that was good for me to do this morning. I did have a telehealth doctor's appointment. That went well. I am A-okay. And later today, I get to work on reviewing scholarship applications for my brother who is deceased, Adam J. Fargo. We have a scholarship in memory of him that we give out at the high school where both of my brothers and I attended. And so I am on the committee of reviewing applications every year for that scholarship. And that is on my agenda this afternoon. So something a little different for me. And then I will dive into some more writing projects later. And if you guys didn't catch the blog article I wrote last month on building emotional resilience, I encourage you to check that out. You can find a link directly to that article on my media and press page on my website at www.sarahobrianlcsw.com. So go give that a read. All of my articles are posted on Medium. All of the links to my articles that I have written to date are in my LinkedIn publishing profile and on the Medium press page on my website. So go check out some of the things that I have written. Okay, last little announcement, and then I'll announce this again at the end, and then I will do my 3 deep breaths for us today. The National Affinity group that I'm a part of, Integrate Trauma Informed Network, is hosting a workshop called Embodied Boundaries for their new Rooted Resilience workshop series that's going to be taking place this year. That is happening on Saturday, May the 10th at 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central Time. It would be about a 2-hour workshop. Cost is $50. You can get $10 off with code Embodied or Embodiment. It is going to be me and Julie Johnson and Famia Hampton. So for anybody that watches my shows, you saw I had on Famia and Julie in the month of March as guests on my podcast. I do lots of work with these two. So we have come together to bring you a concise but comprehensive workshop on how to actually feel into your boundaries. And that's the embodied piece. How do we feel it in our bodies, our nervous systems, and know where our limits are? Julie and Famia are even more amazing humans than me and have more experience than me. And so learning from them is going to be top notch. Of course, you know what you guys will get from me. My segment is on our attachment style and how that impacts our boundary setting as adults. Some really interesting stuff. And Famia has some like actual tangible hands-on exercises that we will do during the workshop to practice sort of the setting boundaries and feeling into these. And then Julie will be talking about nervous system and polyvagal theory and how that impacts boundaries. So it's going to be some really good stuff. So we would love it if we got some signups. Right now, signups are low and slow. We don't know if it's a money thing for people, especially over here in the US, where things are really weird and have been really weird since the beginning of the year, politically and economically in the United States. So we understand that there are financial hardships, but we would love for you to invest in yourself and in skills that are not only going to help you, but help the people around you. It's maybe the best investment that you could make. And we would love to see you at our workshop. So you can go to let'sintegrate.live.com or check any of my things on LinkedIn. I've posted a lot about that workshop and you should be able to find information. Also, if you go to my website, again, www.sarahobrianlcsw.com, the announcement that will flash a few seconds after you get onto the website has a link directly to registration for that Embodied Boundaries workshop. So you can go to my website and get it directly from there. Okay. Let me take another sip, deep breaths, and then we will dive into our content for today. After I make sure my slide deck is correct. Okay, in through your nose, out through your mouth. This helps relax the nervous system, turn down any cortisol, pumping out the stress hormone, elongating the breath helps get more oxygen to the brain, and more oxygen to the brain tells our brain we are good, we are doing good, and therefore everything kind of calms down. This is the point of me doing 3 deep breaths at the beginning of every Healing Hour episode, because there is nothing more healing than oxygen for your whole physiological system, and that includes your mental health. In through your nose, up through your mouth. Here we go. Breath number 1. And exhale. Breath number 2. And exhale. And breath number 3. And exhale. Okay, let's see if I can get my slide deck back on. All right, here we are. Healthy conflict. What does it look like? Be sure to go to my YouTube channel, and that's just YouTube/@timelesstherapist for every single previous Healing Hour episode, including the one from 2 weeks ago on unhealthy conflict, to sort of juxtapose what we are going to be talking about today with healthy conflict. Healthy conflict creates more space to grow ourselves and connect better with others. Conflict is a natural part of life. We are never going to agree with everybody and everything that we encounter in our life experience, nor is everyone else going to agree with us as we move through life. So getting proficient at managing conflict in a healthy way, getting to conflict resolution and solutions in a healthy way are vital skills. And I think honestly, like skills all adults should have at this point, and certainly skills that leadership should have, at least in good leadership. And good leadership should absolutely not be perpetuating unhealthy conflict. They should be modeling this healthy conflict for anybody that follows them, anybody that they lead. If you struggle with conflict in general, you could have some issues with boundaries. You could have some issues with communication. You could have some issues with assertiveness. You could have issues with people pleasing. Or on the other side, like you could have issues with like unchecked anger or rage, which could be unhealed trauma or symptoms of mental health disorder. Either way, we need to be able to take care of ourselves, increase our awareness and our emotional intelligence to be able to engage in healthy conflict and healthy conflict resolution. So just like the last episode on unhealthy conflict, we're going to come from healthy conflict in the same sort of category spheres, which is emotions, like how healthy conflict opens up certain emotions over unhealthy conflict really keeping us trapped in other emotions. Thoughts, what healthy conflict that opens us up to which kinds of thoughts versus being trapped in what kinds of thoughts for unhealthy conflict. Opens us to which kinds of behaviors and actions, and how authenticity is helpful for conflict resolution. If you have questions, comments, your own experiences, please feel free to drop them in the chat. I love to be interactive and have conversations with people even this way. So let me know if something is on your mind. Don't be shy. Okay, healthy conflict from a standpoint of emotions. What healthy conflict does to our emotional self, our emotional experience. When we can engage in healthy conflict, this means that we can be curious, we can put our own ego aside, and we can choose calm or peace over being right or winning. So being curious looks like being open instead of rigid, which also would mean you have self-awareness and social awareness, which are two pillars for emotional intelligence. Putting ego aside, so like putting your wants maybe aside in conflict means that you recognize and value humanity and people as a whole. And that's not just about you and what you want to come out of this conflict. Putting your ego aside also allows you to access empathy for other people and their experience and or what they might be experiencing in the conflict itself. And choosing calm and peace means that we would have access to nervous system regulation and good skills and strategies for getting to regulation. And we are self-aware enough to address our emotions before trying to resolve a conflict. If we are heightened or dysregulated in our emotions, we are not able to use our prefrontal cortex, which is our executive functioning, which is language, decision making, moral reasoning. All of that takes place, communication in the prefrontal cortex. And when we are dysregulated or heightened in our emotions, physiologically, we cannot access that part of our brain. So we really need to address our emotions before moving to resolve conflict. And if we can step into healthy conflict, and part of that is having this self-awareness, then we often can become less emotionally charged just because things are in conflict or opposing views or opposing ideas or opposing needs or wants, in terms of this solution or what people want to see happen. Being open and curious, recognizing that other people also have value and being empathetic to that, managing your own emotions well, are all things that will help us engage in healthy conflict. Okay, thoughts. We want to be sharing or speaking, if we are in conflict or conflict resolution, from a grounded sense of self, understanding the root cause behind the conflict, and understanding that a solution is a co-creation. So what does some of this mean? What are the thoughts that can happen with healthy conflict? If you remember from before, thoughts from unhealthy conflict, or like not recognizing our recognizing our own place or position within the conflict, can have us falling into limiting beliefs, perseverating negative thoughts, jumping to conclusions. Those were some of the things for like unhealthy thoughts around conflict. So if we're talking about healthy thoughts, and sharing from a grounded sense of self, that means that we are able to pan out and see the whole picture and not just our myopic tunnel vision view of what's happening. Unhealthy conflict would leave us kind of stuck and trapped inside of ourselves and our own view and our own thoughts, rather than being able to pan out and see the whole picture. This also moves faulty messages out of the way and gets us to a more rational and or realistic place to address the conflict. Understanding that our own unmet needs from childhood and early in life can maybe be impacting the conflict or our position in the conflict, our view of it. However, if we have self-awareness about our faulty core beliefs and self-management of the emotions that those beliefs evoke in us, then we can engage in conflict in healthier ways. And self-awareness and self-management are also emotional intelligence pillars, right? Like we have to increase emotional intelligence to engage in conflict in healthy ways. If you're not aware of what your unmet needs are and how they impact conflict, that can look like making assumptions about what the other person means when they disagree with you or they give another idea. If your ideas were never heard or appreciated or valued, growing up or at other points in life, and this person has an opposing view or an opposing idea, you could make the assumption that they're just not out to listen to you. And therefore you sort of double down and dig into your stance, which means then we can't pan out, see the whole picture, which means we can't be empathetic to the other person. So that can definitely impact, how we show up in conflict. And so having self-awareness about unmet needs and possibly the faulty core beliefs that those have led to, and possibly the emotions that kicks up for us, and managing that in the moment, like I said before, understanding where your thoughts lead to emotions, and managing that and getting to this open, non-rigid place when you go to engage in conversation about the conflict or conflict resolution. Okay. And then understanding that to really get to a solution that satisfies both parties without one or the other feeling like they've had to over compromise for the sake of what the other person wanted, but like a true middle ground, then that happens between two people or two parties at least. One person or one party can't just decide what the solution is. We have to sort of do that together, which requires good, healthy communication, right? Another key pillar of emotional intelligence is being able to communicate effectively. So this is the idea that others' thoughts, ideas, opinions, innovations also matter, and it can't just be about you. When we have thoughts that we know it's not just about us and other people matter, we can move into more healthy kinds of conflict and discussing two opposing things. Ibrahim's letting us know that it is 70 in Seattle, which is lovely and comfortable, hopefully nice. Definitely sounds a lot better than the 88 that we're having here today. So hopefully you can get outside, Ibrahim, and soak up some of that good weather. We all know that's good for us and good for our brains. Where else are you guys in the world? Andrew, where are you tuning in from? Let us know. I always let you guys know I'm here in Virginia, but it's nice to know where some of the support is coming from. So drop that in there and I'll get back to it after I go through actions that lead to healthy conflict. Pausing when your emotions take over, active listening and validating, taking responsibility for your part, taking ownership and apologizing. These are all actions or behaviors that lead to healthy conflict and healthy conflict resolution. Pausing when your emotions take over goes back to, the emotional part in the beginning where I said if we're dysregulated or heightened in our emotions, we can't really think clearly in the prefrontal cortex. So pausing is the action we would need to take once our awareness about the intensity of our emotion hits our consciousness, then we know what action to take before we move forward in conversing about this conflict or trying to resolve this conflict. We need to take a pause and regulate our emotions so that we can be from a grounded place, pan out, see the whole picture, be able to listen to other people's ideas and suggestions for resolution or solving the issue. Again, this requires your self-awareness about urges to react. Like, do you usually want to say something right away? Most people do. And we don't pause to think about where that is coming from. Again, emotional regulation and self-awareness are emotional intelligence skills, guys. I'm pointing that out a lot because I have a couple of new things that I'm going to mention here at the end of the show today that will be coming for you all if you are interested in working a little bit more with me on these things. Andrew is in beautiful Canada. I've never been to Canada, Andrew, but one day I would like to visit. I don't know if you've ever been to Richmond, Virginia, but maybe one day you could visit here. I personally love it here. I think it's amazing. And I'm always hyping it up for people. Richmond gets a bad rap, but it's not a bad place, certainly not anymore. It's very diverse. It has a lot of interesting things, and I love it here. Thank you for sharing where you are from. We got people all over the place, man. We're coast to coast and continental or intercontinental, and we only have a few people here, guys. That's pretty cool that, technology this day and age takes us far and wide pretty easily. Okay, back to actions for healthy conflict. Active listening and validating. These are skills, behaviors that take practice. Active listening requires us to stay open and curious and not judgmental, and validating requires us to extend understanding and empathy to the other person. So this isn't just thinking about your empathy for other people. This is actually behaving in a way that demonstrates your empathy for other people. So if we go back over here, in emotions, when I'm talking about putting ego aside, recognizing humanity and accessing empathy, this is sort of like within us. And then we think about what that is going to be and how we can pan out for the big picture and not just get stuck within ourselves. And all of this can happen in our emotions and our thoughts. And then we never take any action that looks any different than anything before. Therefore, nobody would know that we have these thoughts or beliefs if it doesn't actually play out in an action, a behavior that somebody else can see. So extending understanding means active listening, which is a behavior, and validating, which is communicating something, which is also a behavior. So this goes beyond just like valuing other people, saying that you appreciate diversity and diverse input. This is actually showing that you appreciate those things. And some other actions that you can take that facilitate healthy conflict are taking responsibility for your part, whether issue in whatever the issue is or whatever the conflict maybe is, and or taking ownership of any breakdown in the relationship, any negative outcomes from decision making or from the conflict, and apologizing to the other person, the other party, for whatever negative impact your part had to play. These are behaviors, guys. Like, you can believe this all day long, but if you don't actually do this in real time and real conflict with other people, it doesn't matter that this is what you think or believe if this is not how you are behaving and acting. Hopefully that makes sense. If you have questions, let me know. Okay, we talked about sort of the extreme black-white mindset that sort of occurs in the unhealthy conflict. This is just a review. And so it's for healthy conflict. Oh, I forgot to change the title. This is wanting to actually resolve the conflict versus wanting to win or be right and or solve the issue instead of just having your way, even if it doesn't solve the issue. And we want to solve it to the point that we actually reach a solution that everyone is satisfied with. So unhealthy conflict mindset would be wanting your way, wanting to win the argument, wanting your solution to be chosen, even if it's not the best solution for everybody, not really caring if everybody is happy in the end. You know, we can see where that's going to cause problems with the other people that you're in conflict with. I mean, that's certainly not listening and validating other people's position, which may be different than your own. Okay, Ibrahim has a lot to say here. Absolutely, Sarah. Emotional regulation isn't about suppressing emotions, but mastering self-awareness. Indeed, right? That is well said. Although an individual with ACE would suppress their emotions, even though they aren't in the right. Help me understand that a little bit. That last sentence there. But in general, yes, suppressing emotions usually doesn't lead us to good outcomes. It usually comes out sideways sometime later. We don't have a good handle on what our thoughts and actions or behaviors that are patterned or automatic as a result of our emotions. All of that does take self-awareness, and then also practice with like managing those things and like down regulating in a way that works for you. Okay. How authenticity improves conflict or moves us closer to healthy conflict. Conflict in general can kick up shame and embarrassment for most people. Most people don't like conflict, even though some people can handle it better than others. People are often afraid to appear inadequate or make mistakes. So that's why we don't like to be confronted with conflict, especially if it's something that we have done. That thing of taking ownership and responsibility for your part, that's hard. If you feel like we're in the wrong and we're experiencing shame. And when people feel shame, they often disconnect, armor up, and become more defensive, which is definitely not going to help us move through conflict in a healthy way. And so by default, then we can't be open to solutions or compromise. So we're more closed off, more of this rigid mindset, more of falling into faulty core beliefs and old patterns rather than opening up, being curious, panning out for the big picture. That when we're authentic, we can say, yeah, like that wasn't a good decision, or I didn't think that would be the outcome, or I'm sorry, that was the outcome. That wasn't my intention. That's humbling ourselves. That's being vulnerable. That's not letting shame and embarrassment overtake us so that we can't engage in a healthy action. That requires a lot of work, folks. Most people just want to push that away. Yes, Ibrahim is I thought this is what you meant, but I wasn't sure. Adverse childhood experiences and trauma, right? So early childhood trauma shows up differently in individuals would suppress their emotions and avoid conflict, even though they are correct. Right. Right. So this is like a passive response to conflict based on early childhood experiences or unmet needs. Right. And so it could look like that, and it could look like aggression, or asserting your view, your argument, you're wanting to win based on your adverse childhood experiences, right? Even though you're in the wrong, right? This kind of goes on both sides. And that's a very good point that Ibrahim brings up. Yeah, that people can shy away from appropriately and honestly addressing conflict for a number of reasons of like not wanting to step into that, even though they may have a good solution or can see it more clearly than others. Okay, back to how I'm get my words on. Maybe I should take a coffee sip. How authenticity moves us towards healthy conflict. Recognizing and owning your mistakes normalizes this for others. Self-disclosure is how others see your authenticity. So again, you could be thinking these things in your brain and maybe experiencing these things in your emotions, but if you don't say these things out loud, people have no idea who you are and where you're coming from, right? If they only see you shutting down and not taking responsibility for your part in the conflict or the issue, they don't know it's from shame and embarrassment and like feeling bad about yourself. They might just feel like you're not interested in solving it with them. So individuals can't know what your authentic experience is, what you're feeling, what you're thinking, what you value, if you value the other person in the conflict, unless you self-disclose. And that also takes vulnerability and is really uncomfortable for people. But not only do your behaviors need to match what you say, but you need to say things that then your behaviors match up with so that people know who you are and when you're being authentic and when you're not being authentic. Okay, let's see what Ibrahim has to say before I go into questions you can ask yourself for authenticity. The black-white thinking fuels unhealthy thinking. Absolutely. It leaves us in the extremes and it doesn't allow us to get to that open, curious place. It keeps us more in a rigid binary place where there's either one right or one wrong. And that is not helpful in conflict. And really is usually not accurate. There's like maybe a whole spectrum of things that could be right or helpful or correct, and whole spectrums of things that could be wrong, unhelpful, or incorrect. And yes, if we are stuck in these streams of thinking, it destroys what Ibrahim is saying here is it destroys the nuance in dialogue. Oftentimes it breaks down the communication. Absolutely. And being in those extreme thinking patterns often like kicks up emotions at the same time. And you guys already heard me say, based on neuroscience, physiological science, and brain health, that if you are activated in your emotions, it's not likely that you're thinking clearly and able to communicate effective anyway, because your prefrontal cortex is not online. The other parts of your brain are lit up and online as you're experiencing emotions and these extreme thoughts. So questions that you could ask yourself or journal on, reflect on to determine your authenticity and if you're being authentic. Recognizing what authenticity looks like in you. When is it easiest for you to be authentic? Which context, which people, which days of the week, which times of the month, which times of the year? What does that look like? What emotions or thoughts get activated during conflict? Again, that's the self-awareness. How often do you share this with others? Self-disclosure. Are you transparent in who you are when you make mistakes and the skills and assets you have? Again, that's self-disclosure. And your actions like matching your self-disclosure, right, in terms of your skills and assets when you make mistakes. And then are you honest about this? So it's not only self-disclosing and being transparent, but it's being accurate and honest about it. It's not inflating the skills and assets you have or inflating, the flaws and mistakes that you made, or flip the other way around, right? Like this is as honest of a reflection as you can get about yourself, and then share it with other people, and we're not perfect, but it's doing your best to again, not have your blinders on, but to pan out even for yourself and look at the whole picture. Okay, that is our content. Again, this is available for replay on my YouTube channel, which is just YouTube/@timelesstherapist. All my previous podcast episodes are also housed there, which means you can find the one from 2 weeks ago, like I keep saying, on unhealthy conflict, to juxtapose the information here with healthy conflict. And then ask yourself some of these authenticity questions. Let me go back for a second. And really try to answer these and spend some time wrestling with it, reflecting on it. I always recommend a journal because you're not going to remember what you processed or how you processed without writing things down and what conclusions you're coming to or what awareness is about yourself. So whether you use a digital journal or an app or something, or the notes app on your phone, or an actual physical paper journal, or whatever the case may be, I encourage you to go write down these questions and then answers to them. And if you can't answer them, then start paying attention to these things for yourself and then move to answering them. You get questions like this in the workbooks that I create in the toolkits. So the emotional intelligence digital products that I have, the dealing with negative thinking workbook. Some of the other ones have prompts just like those questions to get you considering who you are, how you show up, and becoming aware of it. And that is step number 1 in any trauma-informed care or trauma-informed leadership. If you are not aware of yourself, we cannot extend trauma-informed care in the best ways to others. Because if you have blinders on to how you show up and how you behave, then you can't really know if you're causing harm to somebody else or not. And you aren't willing to take an honest look at where you might be causing harm without self-awareness and self-reflection. So that's always number 1. And that requires doing your own work, your self-work, which I reference frequently. Go grab one of my workbooks. Most of my workbooks and toolkits are $19 or less. There is like 1, 2, maybe 3 that are more than that, but they are extremely affordable. And I've worked really hard on these guys and developing these and really making products that's going to help you grow in skills, consider yourself, and gain more self-awareness, and potentially practice some of this stuff depending on where you get in your journey with my digital products, in the awareness piece, right, to the application piece. We have to start with awareness and then we can move to application. So if you remember, you're talking about unhealthy conflict too, faulty core beliefs, limiting beliefs, negative thoughts, making assumptions, jumping to conclusions. Those are all like negative thinking patterns, and you can address those with my workbook. And those things absolutely can be impacting healthy conflict and healthy conflict resolution. I do have a couple of freebies that you can access that might help you with this. The first one is How to Build Your Emotional Intelligence, which is a free ebook located on the free resources section on my website. And then in the trauma-informed leadership section, as well as in the free resources section, I have a link to this short video, like 5 to 7 minutes, highlighting 5 key things to create a culture of safety, which absolutely would include healthy conflict resolution. What other ways can I help you, just other than my digital products? I offer psychotherapy services for individuals living in Virginia and Maryland. Those are the states in which I'm licensed in until we get the interstate compact that would open me up to more states. But if you live in Virginia and Maryland, I can be your therapist. If you live outside in Virginia and Maryland, I can be your coach. If you have fairly stable and healthy mental health, but you want to work on something like boundaries, increasing self-awareness, increasing your emotional intelligence, coping skill acquisition and learning, those are all things that we can do in coaching services. I am available for one-to-one sessions. I have packages to cut down on overall cost. I would love to work with you and help you with this. Not only does this serve and help the people around you, it's really good for you. And that's where I come from a lot of the time, guys, because I work in the one-to-one space as a psychotherapist, 80 to 90% of the time. And so I see individual transformational change occur, which then has a ripple effect out into their families, their friends, their partners, their kids, their communities. And so it really can start with just you. We don't need to change systems. You don't need to change your workplace. You don't need your whole family to change, your spouse to change, whatever. You can work on some of these things for yourself, and it is going to help you. Even if nothing else around you changes, it will be beneficial. I've seen it time and time again. I've worked with thousands of individuals at this point in my career. And I am confident that I can help you learn the skills that you want. And like I said, if these are skills in assertive and effective communication, in healthy and appropriate boundary setting, in self-awareness and self-management, in coping skill acquisition, those types of things, please reach out to me. And I do business to business consulting for groups, organizations, teams, executives on trauma-informed leadership. And that's applying a lot of these skills and emotional intelligence to your workplace situation or your team, your nonprofit organization. So if you are interested in bringing that to your place of business or organization, please reach out to me for my consulting services. I'm going to say it again, just so that people will get it. I am seeing more of a need to just state these things out loud so people don't have to go look it up some other time. You can find all of the information about the services I provide, all of my digital products, all of my trauma-informed leadership experience and certifications on my website at www.sarahobrienlcsw.com. Okay, as I said, licensed psychotherapist, trauma-informed coach, and consultant. I wear many hats. I do lots of speaking, writing, and training. I also have startup packages for licensed mental health clinicians that want to get a private practice up and going. And with everything happening in the US government and lots of layoffs, this might be you or somebody that you know. I have done this myself and been successful for 9 years. I celebrate 9 years of being self-employed May 16th of this year. So woo woo, that's really exciting. And I can help you do the same. Again, you can find all my contact information on my website. I would love to work with you. Okay, that's it for my show. But I told you guys I have an announcement. So the other emotional intelligence things that I have to offer, which I may be seeing more of a need for, to kind of wrap our heads around what these concepts are, like tangibly. How do we apply them? How do we apply them to self? How do we apply them to situations and interpersonal interactions? So I have a couple of options. There, I have a free emotional intelligence quiz so you can test your emotional intelligence knowledge. It is available on my website. It is, again, under the free resources right there at the top. Click on it. It will score it for you, and you can find out where you are with emotional intelligence. If you're not that great at answering those questions, you can start with picking up my free ebook for emotional intelligence, 17 suggestions every person should have or know. And then, of course, you can then go beyond those free resources and look into some of my digital products to expand. And then coming soon, if you guys would want this live, I would need people to sign up and let me know. So I haven't decided if I'm going to do it live or pre-recorded yet. It depends on how much interest I get. But I'm going to do a crash course in emotional intelligence, and it's going to come with its own robust slide deck and some handouts and prompts and things for everybody that participates in that workshop or purchases it. It's not going to be very expensive, guys. It's going to be about an hour long. It's going to give you everything that you need to know to basically get your feet wet, to have all the concepts, have some examples, and then it's going to leave you with some things to then go out and try to start practicing and gain some of these skills and some of this awareness on your own. So if you know of anybody that would benefit from an emotional intelligence crash course, please send them my way. Send me a DM, send me on LinkedIn, or send me an email or wherever. Let me know that you're interested. Send anybody else that you think would be interested. And I'm happy to share more about what that crash course workshop will be like. I appreciate Andrew. Andrew has had access to my quizzes. He says they're amazing. I also have one for testing your knowledge for setting boundaries and knowing what that looks like. So go check those out. Again, on the free resources, test your knowledge, setting boundaries, emotional intelligence. I want to thank Andrew Stout and the Let's Be Diverse podcast for sponsoring the Healing Hour. And I always appreciate Andrew showing up to attend my shows and comment. You guys know that even if you just say that you're going to attend and drop one or two comments, it increases the engagement and visibility of my content. And I would appreciate that as a, tired psychotherapist who has been also tirelessly working for several years to pivot into other lines of business. I could still use other lines of business. I'm having to pick up more psychotherapy clients to pay the bills, but it's really hard after 15, 16 years in the direct care space to continue doing this full time. I would like to scale back from my clinical caseload and be able to do some things that are just less wear and tear and drain on me as the provider. So things like this emotional intelligence crash course and my digital products that are based on research, my years of experience as a psychotherapist, watching others work through transformational change, developing homework assignments for clients, and then of course, my own psychotherapy and healing journey are what informs the development of all of my digital products. They are based in research and empirical evidence, and then, of course, my own practice experience. So these are things that work, folks. And this is one way that I'm trying to move out of the one-to-one clinical space and move into hopefully reaching wider audience, but also getting into some work that's less draining. For anybody that thinks that a mental health provider should just be providing direct care 20, 30, 40 hours a week for 40 years is insane. It's not possible. It's not sustainable. We need diversity in our work. We need creativity. We need something that is less draining and less using all of our resources as an emotional human. And so there needs to be diverse options for clinicians later in their career. It's not that we don't want to provide mental health treatment and services to folks. It's just that we need to do something other than just that. So I appreciate anybody that can support my work in the world, and especially my work that is different than providing psychotherapy treatment, because that is the stuff that gives me more energy versus the stuff that takes energy. So I appreciate any support, any purchases of my products, any referrals for collaborations for freelance and contract projects, or sending over any referrals for coaching, consulting clients in that space. I appreciate anybody and everybody who has tuned into my show today. Thank you, Ibrahim. Thank you, Andrew. Hopefully I'll catch some more of you next week. Some exciting stuff for May, guys. I got guests coming back. Several people from my LinkedIn network will be joining me for Mental Health Awareness Month, which starts today, kicks off today. The month of May is Mental Health Awareness. And I have some clinicians, some social workers, some other mental health providers coming on as guests just about every other week that I'm having a show in May. You guys are going to see Deborah Cady next week. She is a licensed clinical social worker that works heavily in the trauma-informed leadership space and within workplaces. And we're going to talk about mental health and social work out in the world, in her world, and the way that she is working with people and how that is impacting things. We're going to have one of my other amazing mentors, Katie Kurtz, who is a powerhouse in trauma-informed care and trauma-informed leadership. I also have Susan Frager, who is a medical billing specialist for mental health providers and licensed clinicians. She's also a social worker. We'll be joining at the end of the month. And then maybe a surprise guest in there. We will find out. So please tune in next week for my show with Deborah Katie. It's going to be amazing. She is so much fun to talk to and is doing such cool things in her work in the world. And I get to learn from her, and she is doing great in the trauma-informed leadership space and bringing that out and speaking and training on that. So I'm really looking forward to having her on the show to talk about what she is doing and how this all relates to mental health. Be sure to take care of your mental health. That is first and foremost. You cannot show up for anybody else if you are not well. Take care of yourself. And I hope that you will tune in with me next week, May the 8th at 11 a.m. Eastern for another episode of the Healing Hour. Thank you all. I'll see you then. Bye.